So thank you very much and welcome to the latest Leading Your International School podcast. My name is Barry Cooper. I'm the principal here in Madrid at the Global College. And with us today, we have Francis Jospeh, who is an incredibly experienced educator. I'm not even going to pretend to go through the long list of achievements you've had already. We've had a great conversation already offline. Francis, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, where you are at the moment, and just a soup song of your experience? Because if we talk about your whole career, we're going to be here for the next half hour.
Namaste. So,
Namaste.
Namaste from Mumbai, and I think I've spent all my life in Mumbai. Started my journey as a teacher, and now I look after the India operations of GEMS Education, which is world's largest operator of schools, private schools. So my journey from being a teacher to being an executive director now has been amazing, and I think I've got lots to share about my journey. So, but finally, at heart, I'm a teacher.
I absolutely, and I think having talked with you before, I know that's definitely true. I think one of the things that people are very interested in at the moment is India. I think India is a fantastic kind of country. It's a fantastic place to be. It's a subcontinent. I think this is something that people don't quite realize is that the distance between Kerala and Delhi is a little bit more than just a trip in a car. Can you give us a sense of India and the private school landscape at the moment?
So I think, I don't know how much you know about India, but I think India has got 28 states and almost 8 union territories. And every state would have their own language, their particular culture, tradition, and that makes it very, very interesting because India is known as a land of diversity. But also it makes it very complex when the country has to move together with a vision. We have almost 1.5 million schools across the country in all these states. And that's quite a number. And almost right now, we have almost 250 million kids who go to these schools. Out of this 1.5 million schools, around 1 million is almost government schools run by the different state governments. And the rest would be private schools. But the interesting fact is that 50% of the school-going population go to these 30% of private schools, right? So the private sector is very, very much in demand. People prefer private schools as a whole, not undermining the impact which the government schools also bring to the education scenario. But India, the education is a concurrent subject it's a partnership between the state and the center. So both have to work together to ensure that education of the state improves. We have got around 8.5 million teachers in the country. And
8.5 million teachers. That's the population of Belgium. That's just to put that into some context. That's amazing.
But I think you have to understand that teaching was not seen as a very very preferred profession, right? I mean, I remember when I was a teacher in 90s, when I started my journey as a teacher. I think when I told my parents that I want to be a teacher, I mean, I was told, okay, this is all what you got to do in life, because at that particular time, getting a job in a bank or getting a government job was most preferred. And people never used to leave jobs, right? My father was working in a private entity. He almost served 45 years not leaving his job. So I think, but now, today, times have changed. India is evolving. Those 28 states have their own state curriculum. The state boards are there. There are multiple boards also in the country. We have a central board run by the Ministry of Education, which is known as CBSE, Central Board of Secondary Education. Then we have a private board known as Council of Indian Schools Secondary Education, which is known as CISCE, which people also call it as ICSE. Then, yes, we have the 2 international boards, which is IB and the Cambridge. If you bring all the schools together in the country affiliated to these 4 boards, there would be around, out of 1.5 million, there would be around just 30,000 schools under this, majority being CBSE.
Okay.
because of mobility of people from country to country. We have a lot of CBSE schools in UAE, in Singapore, wherever the Indian community is.
There's
But
one here in
besides
Madrid.
this,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So, but if you see the 1.5 million schools, majority are state boards, which are run by the governments. So, and that's where many of the kids are right now in India.
Can I ask
So, yeah,
can I
please.
jump in and ask a subsidiary question there? The state boards, what kind of impact do they have on curriculum? Is it something that's quite because I mean the state in India is the size of a country in Europe. So
Yeah.
is there a kind of direct focus by the states to create a curriculum that leads towards that state's ambitions, be it agriculture, tech industry, finance or AI? Is that something that you're seeing in India?
Yeah, so interestingly, the country is evolved on a national education policy just recently, right? We call it the National Education Policy 2020. It's after 34 years, we have relooked at our policy, right? We have had earlier this is the third national education policy which we have got. And there is a national curriculum framework which is developed as per the policy. And every state needs to align to the national curriculum framework. They bring a state education framework based on which each state will bring their local context and develop materials, the curriculum and the pedagogy. So there's some freedom given to every state, but the overall framework has to be followed, which is given by the national curriculum framework. The national education policy is a very aspirational document. It covers the stress is not just on cognitive skills; it's on foundational skills, emotional skills, higher order thinking skills, and that's the focus. I mean, our focus on early childhood education is now, for the first time, there is a focus on early child education, which they were just taken for granted till now, in my view. The younger kids, especially the 0 to 6, are a top priority in India. Yeah.
That's fantastic to hear, and it's amazing from kind of someone who's in Europe to see states in Europe struggle to do what India's doing, which is to put into national policy that the human skills going through the education system as part of a national agenda. I mean, if we think about the private school landscape and the job of leading a school, I mean, what from your perspective in this giant kind of collection of different schools and boards and different stakeholders, what are the real challenges of being a principal at the moment, you think, in the 21st century? And maybe as well you can speak a little bit about India specifically.
So I think for me, the learner's aspiration and parent aspiration is the most challenging to adapt to, because it keeps shifting, right?
Yeah.
As principals, we are partners to a teacher and a parent, right? We are not superior or inferior, right? We are on par. So I think understanding the aspiration of a parent and student is very, very critical. And it sort of keeps changing state by state as per the context. But overall, in India, when we look at schools, there are certain things which have settled down. Certain aspirations have settled down. Our education system is also driven a lot by marks, by numbers, right? There are entrance exams to higher education where people they almost forget school education just to ensure that the entrance exam, they are able to score better. I've heard of instances where a grade 6 child is preparing for the entrance exam post grade 12. I mean, that's a kind of intense, following for entrance exams is there in India. Entrance exams are for medical, engineering, different kind of courses after grade 12. So I think career focus is really increasing in India, right? Parents are wanting their children to ensure that they get a good career. Today, the parents are very open to also give that choice to a student. The student never had a voice and a choice before, right? But fortunately today, I think times are changing in larger cities, smaller towns. We can see a child also becoming a professional musician, a professional ethical hacker, There are people who are pursuing lines in finance, not just medical or engineering. Of course, they are still much in demand. Everyone wants to be a doctor. And the requirement for medical professionals is also large in India, because that also takes you to different countries worldwide. Because, India is the global manpower, right? We give so many children to the whole world. So the demand for doctors are so high. So I think matching the parent aspiration and learner aspiration is very, very critical. Schools have really running a school is not easy today's time, right? It's a little bit complex, because in many of the state board schools, the sizes of classrooms are pretty large. And how do you reach to every child is a challenge, right? Because children are so different. How do you reach to each and every child? So differentiation, ensuring inclusion. There was a time when inclusion was not given importance, but now schools do a lot in inclusion so that they can reach each and every child. Also, to ensure that principals, another big challenge is that they need to give more importance to teaching as a profession. They don't do much, in my view. I mean, when I see career fairs, I see you inviting universities from across the world for a different profession, but not teaching profession. Why don't you do that? Right? You should encourage, because there's I just read the UNESCO report of the shortage of almost 44 million teachers worldwide. I mean, we need so much teachers in this world. There are so many teachers who are leaving the profession and going to some other profession. So why, I mean, principals don't encourage enough, in my view, the teaching profession, right? So I think that's one thing which principals have to take a lead, right?
I mean, I think it's the best
And
job in the world. So it's it really is. Let me ask two questions within that.
sure.
I mean, the first I would say is, or I would ask is, as a leader, and also as a leader within India, because I think we have to think about this in context. So how we treat families in India is going to be within their context. How do you help young people see themselves as individuals and different, and to get them focused on things that are right for them as they go through education? And then also, as principals, what are the best ways we can then encourage teaching as a profession?
I think we have to be a role model. I think I'm taking your second part, right? I think we have to be really a role model in front of our students, right? I always say the young children who sit in our class, we sometimes feel they don't look at us, right? But they are like live recording machines, especially the pre-primary and primary children.
Absolutely.
Right? They know how many times you step out of the classroom, what is in your tiffin box. I think they know everything all, right? So I think whatever action we take, we are actually either inspiring them or we are motivating them to be teachers, right? So I think carrying ourselves with that kind of character is very, very critical. And they just don't watch us now in physical classrooms, but they also watch us in social media. That's a new thing for newer principals, because if you might be the best principal in school with the best role model, and you go back home and start putting silly social media messages and some disturbing perspectives about some scenario, then you're not becoming you're not setting a good role model. So I think maintaining that is very, very important. So I think that's the role of a principal, to encourage children. And to reach out to every children is not easy, right? I think, but technology is a big help, right? I think principals and teachers should use technology so that you can reach to every children. I mean, there was a time I remember when I used to teach, I had almost 60 children, in my class. And as the grades increased at the grade 10 level, we had almost 100 children in the class. I could hardly find a space to stand in the classroom, right? And during the lunchtime, it's like I'll get the whole India, the aroma of all kind of tiffins opens up. It's almost like India is smelling in the class. I mean, so think about teaching, right? How do I reach to those 100 children, right? I mean, and that time we didn't have technology. How much can you record? How much you can do? But today, with technology, you can really reach to every child, right? You know what do they like. And it's not necessary that every child needs to have a tablet, right? I mean, at least there are many children who have mobile phones today, right? In India, many of the schools don't allow mobile phones to be brought. It's not allowed, it's banned, so that they don't get distracted, so-called distracted. So they have started after COVID, we have started seeing that the kind of devices which are coming into play is so high. So you can use that opportunity to understand what are the learning styles of every child, what is a pathway we can find to reach to them. Also, they open up in the classroom, right? We know which child likes what, right? You can use that definitely as a pathway to reach to every child, but it's an effort to be taken. And
Yeah.
principals, I think, role is to ensure that they guide those teachers how to reach to those pathways. They have to spend more time moving around in the school rather than fixed to a nailed to a chair. They should never be nailed to a chair.
Absolutely, and I think we're all guilty of that sometimes. And it's
Yeah.
I think as a principal, we all need someone who says, actually, come on, you should be doing this, or someone who speaks truth and
Yeah.
says, no, you're not quite getting it right. And I've got a couple of fantastic colleagues here who are very happy to say, you know what, perhaps we need to do something different. I think listening to your colleagues and having that openness and treating education as a team sport is often something
Yeah.
that gets much better results. And
Also the principals needs to get to the classroom and teach, right?
yeah,
Without teaching, you do not have a connect. I think that's a big challenge in India. I think principals are so much involved in administrative activities that running after buses, have the children reached. Yes, that's important that every child who comes in reaches back home safely. But you can always teach, because when you teach, the sentiment going in the classroom. The children also start feeling, yeah, I think he's worth to be a principal. He's not like just like moving around, right? He understands what the child goes through.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. It's why I teach the IB course here. And it does give you a different perspective from being in the office, from seeing, it's a discipline, it's a parent call, it's an administration. You're looking at spreadsheets, you're looking at finance, and actually, we get into this job to work with young people and to be inspired by them and to hopefully inspire them. And the more you do of that, I think the better your day is. I mean, you've spoken a lot about different parts of kind of India there. So the post-COVID situation and the typical kind of day in India. I love the idea. I love the idea of you stood in the room of 100 kids with all these tiffin boxes opening. I think it reminds me of my childhood growing up in East London. It's just, the smells of India, all those spices, and seeing what everyone's got as well, which is always fantastic. But what else are the challenges of being a principal, particularly in India at the moment?
So I think, like I mentioned, running a school in India is not easy, because I think, you have to be really on the ground, right? You can't just sit on a chair, right? Because schools are finally serving the community, right? You cannot detach yourself as only serving 3,000 children. You are also serving the families of those 3,000 children, their extended families, and the people around. So it's a larger responsibility. There are many reforms of policies which has happened. For example, I'll give you an example of right to education. We have an act which is passed, which ensures that 25% of the seats a school has to allot to children who are under the economic strata, who are not able to get good education, and they should come from the neighborhood. So you are permitted to embrace them into the system, and you're not supposed to charge them. The government would pay you a fixed amount to ensure that their teaching and learning happens. But yes, when you bring them in, you have children of different strata, and to ensure diversity in the classroom which was the essence many years back, but slowly and steadily diversity was missing in the classroom. So how do you handle that diversity in the classroom? You might have a child whose father is probably a peon in the school, and you might have a CEO's child both studying in the same classroom, right? So how do you handle that diversity and not bring any disparity of opportunities, or showing that one is superior and inferior in terms of what he wears, what he brings to in the tiffin box, how does he deal, because that child comes from a different environment. So I think that's one big area which I think India is addressing. A lot of principals are putting a lot of effort to ensure that children are embraced. Inclusion is another big area. Inclusion was a mystery till now. Parents also never used to accept if they have to hear that that their child is gifted. I mean, they used to feel that my child is not learning enough. Till now, I mean, even if you go to a classroom now today, if you go to an IB school, if it's a primary years program, they will say, where is the textbook? A parent needs a textbook. Where is the child is not writing enough? So he's just coming to the school and playing, right? I mean, why does he study? Why can't the school just make him study? So I think all these kind of mindsets are there. So like I keep saying, like we have lesson plans for teachers, we should have lesson plans for parents. So that we can all bring them up to the level. So I think handling parents is you have to think from the local context. You can't push your ideology and say, okay, this is good. There are gradual steps you have to take. So I think handling parents is another big challenge. Since we have got so much state governments handling the policies, different types of policies are there, regulations are there. For example, many of the state have their regional language as to be taught as compulsory in the schools, right? You can't say no, because they would penalize you as a school. So I think, but children come from multiple backgrounds. So how do you handle that, right? And how do you explain to the parent that this is the mandate, right? You have to follow. So I think many of these policies you have to manage. You have to engage with the policymakers and ensure that there is no disruption and we are able to follow the policies very well. And policies just keep coming. Sometimes, during COVID, I remember that, or before COVID also, if it rains heavily, there was a time when we used to wait for a tweet from the education minister to decide whether we should shut down the school, right? And because I was quite active in Twitter, I mean, most of the principals used to write to me, okay, has the minister tweeted? Has the minister tweeted? They don't, and then I used to say, oh, he has just tweeted. And there you go, telling all the parents that the school is shut down. So that kind of mindsets also has to be, you have to deal with it, because you have to deal politicians and ministers and policymakers, because they don't see you like educators. They always see it as a process, right? They don't think that announcing the closure of a school at 6 o'clock, what kind of difficulty it brings to the parent or the student or the principal. It's not easy, yeah. Right? I mean, I've got 4,000 children, and to tell everyone that the school is going to be shut down, I'm sure many would come, the bus would have come, it's very complex. So I think being in the context, but it's all fun, right? I mean, I've gone through all this journey, but I have never repented, because next time you are more sharper, you become more smart, a smarter kid in the street.
I love the idea of school principals as street fighters, just trying to kind of weather the storm of life. You said something really interesting there about language. Something that from my perspective, growing up in the UK, for example, if you speak more than 2 languages, I mean, you're burned as a witch. It's you're like a unicorn, really. I mean, India is famous as this. I mean, most Indians I've met are polyglots. They speak at least kind of 2 languages fluently, and then you meet kind of others who then pick up a second or third or fourth or a fifth. Is there how much of an advantage is that for young learners when they are growing up in this bilingual environment? I mean, just in terms of, and this is a pet kind of peeve of mine, a project of mine, because I'm bringing my children up bilingually at home, and our students here speak English and Spanish.
So I think out of the 1.5 million schools, almost 85% of schools are in rural India. You have to remember that. Yeah. And in rural India, the power of a regional language, it's very powerful, right? So to ensure that the parents and the teachers are engaged, regional languages are very, very powerful, right? If you, of course, yes, everyone likes to send their children to an English medium school, but if the parent and the teacher has to be engaged well, you need the use of regional languages. And with the national education policy, the focus is very, very clear, is that it is recognized that the regional languages should get more importance, right? Especially at the early years and the foundational years, because children understand and parents are able to engage better. It also a little bit improves the status of the parent. The parent gets more confident to go to a school. Otherwise, I have witnessed some parents who feel that, I can't speak good English. So when I go to my child's English medium school, the teacher might talk in English because there is a rule in the school saying that only talk in English, and I can't talk English. So better not to go, better to avoid. So they start detaching. But if you make it a little bit bilingual, also the parents also get a little bit comfortable. I had a very good experiment which we had done for one of my Government of Maharashtra projects, where we had introduced an education board specifically for a regional language, where the medium was a regional language. Of course, we used to teach good English. Instead, children used to learn a lot of language. But we realized that parents and teachers and students were very happy. I mean, language is just a way of communication, right? Children, they can learn English, Hindi, Marathi. I mean, I know at least 4 languages because I know a national language. I know my regional language because my mother tongue is Malayalam, which comes from Kerala. But I'm born and brought up in Maharashtra, so I understand Marathi. Since I'm in India, I know Hindi and then I know English. But since I've worked in different parts of the country, I can understand Gujarati, I can understand Tamil, multiple languages. Because when you set up a school, you talk to so many people, right? You might not be great in speaking initially, but you start understanding. And there is a correlation between all languages, I've realized. So once you know one language, at least you're covering 3, 4 languages. So children should be exposed to maximum languages. That's the age to learn. And if you see the kind of newspapers coming in a city of Bombay, we might think English newspaper is very popular. But if you go to people who have come from Rajasthan, who are settled in Mumbai, they might read their languages. The original Maharashtrians will prefer to read their language. So the number of publication in local language is much sought after. It's actually would be more than English. So it is very important to recognize that the way you teach bilingual is very, very powerful. So now the national education policy, they say that you can teach English, but you have to have a national language and you have to have the regional state language as mandatory to be taught in all the schools across India. Be it an IB or a Cambridge or, there's no difference.
I think this is one of the things that makes, for me, India a really exciting place to be a school leader, to be a teacher, especially if you believe that language is and communication is a central part of that. What from your perspective, I know, as a proud Indian, you're going to have a lot to talk about here. But what are the great things about India for people who are thinking about moving into international education in India? What would you kind of pick out and say, look, these are the fantastic experiences, educational opportunities? I'm just going to let you talk because I love listening to this.
I think, most of the travel which I do with my family is all around India because there's so much to see in India. Trust me, you will get all likes of Switzerland and everything in India. You don't need to go beyond India to even look for a beautiful place, beautiful climate. So right from the weather to the scenic, everything is in India, right? And especially because I come from Mumbai, where it's almost like a concrete jungle, we love to travel across India, right? So I have got a lot of people who have migrated to India. And a lot of people have settled down in India. For example, one of my directors in our Kerala school, he's a Britisher. Now he's like around 80 years old, but he's settled down since many years. He loves India. He loves Kerala. Whenever I asked him, do you want to move back? He said, no, this is my home. So yes, when you try, India is giving the world, the children for the future, right? if you want to teach, and if you want to be a successful teacher, and if you want that the impact should go across the world, the children are in India, right? You can't escape India. If you're staying away from India, you are missing something for the future. That's my clear word. India is a land of diversity. So types of foods, tradition, culture, festivals. I'm a Christian by religion. I'm a Roman Catholic, but I have celebrated all types of festivals in my life. I do not see a Diwali different from a Christmas for me. I play Holi with my friends. We enjoy the Bakri, the biryanis, from my friends. So for us, that's the beauty of India. We all stay together, right? People might sometimes people don't see enough, right? But being in India as a Christian, I'm allowed to follow my faith, but I'm also allowed to appreciate the faith of my friends, right? And that's a beauty. So most of them like to, most of them, people who come from abroad, like all these festivals. Diwali, Holi is very popular. In Mumbai, there is a festival known as almost like a it's almost like a 10-day where they bring the idol of Lord Ganpati, and after the 10th day, they immerse in the river. But I think those 10 days you can't forget. Then, you've heard of Dashera, right? Where people play Dandiya, and it's amazing, I think. So I think it's almost in India, the number of holidays for festivals is pretty large. So, so you have a lot of time to travel. So it's fun. But yes, you have to adapt to the local context, right? You should you have to connect with people. People are very welcoming in nature. You might think that they're getting into your privacy, but no, that's not the intention. They just want to be sure that you are comfortable, right? uh, because sometimes people come from different parts of the world and say, oh, you're getting into my privacy. But that's how Indians are, right? The first time I meet, I might say, hey, hi Barry, how are you? You're married, how many children do you have? This becomes a common question because there's no intention to hurt your privacy, but that's how we are wired, you know but India is beautiful. You can't.
I mean, I agree. I mean, I've only visited once and spent some time in Kerala, traveling through Mumbai. But I think that's something that I remember, that actually those questions, and it's after a while I started to recognize it not as an invasion of privacy or over inquisitiveness, but just welcoming, and just it's people kind of pleased to see kind of a traveler and wanting to find out more about me. And then I just started finding out more about other people, and it was great, being on the trains, staying down there in the south in Kerala, and really getting to understand that India is so much bigger than
Children in the classroom will love you. Trust
yeah.
me, because they want to know so much about a person coming from abroad, right? They want to know their culture, right? So they are usually the most popular teachers. When you have an expat teacher in the school, they're very popular because children are very, very curious that, how does it happen, abroad. So I think children also look at the world as a larger picture, you know.
Well, I mean, one of the things I'm curious about is there's lots of schools and new companies kind of opening international schools in
Yeah,
India.
yeah,
Harrow and
yeah.
Wellington and these sorts of places. What's your kind of take on that? Is it because they see the opportunities, because they see? I mean, is this something that India is looking for? They want more of these international schools coming to them. What's your take on that?
So I think India's economy is growing, right? We are
Yeah.
in five. We will reach three very soon, and that's the vision of our prime minister. And I think once he decides, it will happen, right? I mean, that's my personal conviction because I've seen him from being a chief minister earlier to being the prime minister now. And I think that's really improved the living standards of people, right? People's preference for education has improved because Indians travel across the world, right?
So there was a time they had not traveled, so they have not seen other schools around. But now they have seen schools, they have met people across, so their expectation of quality is really increased. So, and I think that's a big opportunity for many international schools who have come to India. But my word of caution is you have to have your context. Don't miss out the local context, because if you miss out the local context, you would be lost in due course, right? Because when you talk about teaching in the curriculum, you might teach the global history, but you should also teach about Indian history, right? I think sometimes people forget that they are sitting in India. The parents need their children to understand history of their country also. So I think, and that's one thing which schools are understanding. I recently read an article when all these international schools came in. They have already started realizing that without local context, it's very difficult to operate in India. But the income is improved. People want experiences. They want better teachers, and there are students and families ready to pay, right? Why should they send their children all the way to some other country when they can still be closer? For example, Harrow opened in Bangalore. I mean, it's a residential school. Children can stay in Bangalore and at a short distance can come back home also, right? So I think parents, there are parents who prefer, of course. And also there is a status also, right? Parents also, when they pay the money, value for money is also the status that my child goes here, my child goes there. That also a little bit is a sticking point for many parents to send to international schools.
There is a big history though within India of boarding schools, isn't there? So schools
Yeah,
set up in the end of the 19th century. Is that
yeah.
something you think might increase, or is that something that maybe the parents want to keep children a bit closer these days?
No, I think boarding schools started when I think in hill stations, especially during the pre-independence, right? Because there was a cooler place. That's where the most of the boarding schools were, where the climate was better. But if you see in India now, there are many places where the location might not be as cool as a hill station, but still there are residential schools. Parents do prefer to send their children because they want to live on their own. They want to make their children a little bit embrace life skills and start connecting. Because the kind of relationship which a boarding child gets in a residential school is much more than a day school. The relationship with his peers, life skills, survival skills, everything comes as a part of learning in a residential schools. So parents do realize that. There are cases where also there are a lot of family challenges, broken families, who have challenges of taking care of their children education, or probably parents who have their career as a top focus. They can't really take care of their children so much. Of course, out of compulsion, they need to send their children to a residential school. So that's another, if you see in every school, you have a lot of these children also, right? Of course, that becomes challenging for the principal. But I think in a residential school, you'll have a mixture of all these kind of kids coming from different states, different countries, all coming together. I mean, I've seen a school in Bangalore, which is a total vegetarian management running the school, and there are school students who have come from Thailand, right? And there is no non-veg served in that school. But the school had to adapt, right? They did not allow that in the campus, but they did it outside, so that the Thailand students are taken care of. So schools have to adapt, right? And children, I think from Korea, Thailand, Sri Lanka, different parts of the world, they come because they want to know what's happening in Indian schools, the kind of discipline which an Indian school gives. We are known for a little bit, little bit culturally, we are a little bit focused on discipline is much higher, I think, compared to other countries.
Absolutely. I mean, in terms of the opportunities for teachers and also for students, I think there's some really interesting kind of schools in India. I think there's some really interesting opportunities in India for teachers, but also for families. If who are thinking maybe of doing something slightly different, and some amazing quality education. I mean, if you look at some of the schools across the country, in terms of advice from you, I mean, you have years of experience in India, years of experience. I mean, obviously you'll work with government, you'll work with GEMS, your work as a headmaster. What would be, if you were going to give some advice to people who are thinking about India as an opportunity for them as teachers or school leaders, what would your kind of, how would you sum up your advice?
I think every teacher in the world should spend at least 3 years in India. It should be made mandatory.
Okay,
because
I need to get on that.
Because I think once you come to India and teach the students in India, you will be able to tackle any kind of children in the world. That's my feeling. Because not just the children, the environment and the diversity and the inclusion we offer, you might not get it everywhere, right? You have, so I think that's a big opportunity. And I have seen a lot of people who have taught in India and gone back. They have started understanding their classroom much better. They've started understanding perspectives much better, because finally in education, diversity is what India offers. It's a huge, which you might not get in many countries, right? So India is a land of diversity. You'll get a lot of, in the classroom, it's like, when I was in school, I remember, I think we had almost 10 to 12 states inside that classroom. I had a Punjabi friend, I had a Gujarati friend, a Bengali friend. So that kind of diversity, and even if they are part of one country, but they are so different in their thought process, their patterns of thinking. So I think that opportunity you shouldn't miss. No teacher should miss. So I'm just saying 3 years, but at least a year of teaching in India, either as an intern, coming as a teaching assistant, right? A lot of associations send their they come here for an experience, right? But when you come here, you have to wear the skin of the country, right? Do not, because you are suddenly, I had an experience of having some teachers come from abroad, and in the morning they were the best teachers, but in the evening, they used to, when they move in the markets, they were on their own, forgetting that parents and students are watching. In small places, towns, everyone watches everyone.
Yeah.
So, and that exercise didn't help me, right? So I think you have to understand that you have to just respect the local tradition, and and just sink into it. Wear that same skin. When I go to different countries, I become like them, right? Same here, it will help. So don't miss India. If you're missing India, you're missing something in your teaching career.
I think I'm inspired, frankly. The idea of just sinking into the culture, I think that's such wise advice, and it's something that has helped me immensely, when I've moved around the world. And I think that's something I definitely say, yeah, I support that 100%. I might put that on a wall somewhere. In terms of, just last questions from me. In terms of people who have listened to this and are inspired, how can they best look for opportunities in India? Are you happy to be I know you're on LinkedIn. Are there particular places that people should be examining or looking for these opportunities? What do you suggest?
I think every school, of course, in India highlights their recruitment needs in the school. But I think you using some good references and networks to get into an opportunity is the best, right? I never believe that just you should believe an advertisement and come and apply. You should increase your network. LinkedIn is a great platform to improve your networks. And the best of best positions and the best of best school comes through such networks, right? So we have a lot of professional networks in India, right? There are IB associations, there are Cambridge associations, there are CBSE associations, private schools associations. Get into the network and get to know more about the school and the opportunity, and it just comes in, right? Rather than just getting a headhunter to trying to place you. Even if a headhunter places you, do a reference check, because in today's time, the management is also active of a school, just not the principal. So there are there are, the culture of the management and the culture of the principal could be different also. So it is very important to do a little bit reference check of the management, because finally they are leading the vision of the school. So, and that you can get through, professional communities. They will really guide you. And I'm always just a call away, a ping away. In LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, everywhere.
Fantastic. Francis, thank you so much for sharing everything today. This has been fantastic. I think for me, the phrase I'm going to take away is sink in. Sink into the culture, sink into the environment, sink into what is, for me, having grown up in East London. I only visited once, and I'm planning on taking my my children. I'm planning on taking my children in the next 18 months to come visit India. So I think that's going to be an eye opener for them and an opportunity.
And keep me informed. Keep me informed, because our community will really help you, right? Our teaching community and professional community is good enough, right?
Yeah.
So we can always help you to, when you go to certain places, you can also visit some schools there. So you'll see certain classrooms also. It will always help.
And the other way around, Francis, if you're flying through Madrid, there is a table at my local restaurant reserved just for you. So you have to tell me. Right,
Thank
so
you so
I'm going to wrap up there. Otherwise, because Francis, I could talk to you for another hour probably, but I know you're an incredibly busy man. So we run this podcast for leading your international schools. We're supported by TIC, so which is a fantastic platform for finding your headmasters all the way down to your teaching assistants, and they run across the world. So please do check them out. Francis, Joseph, a final big thank you from me for being here today.
Thank you.
And we'll see you all again soon on probably in the new year. So I will say a very happy Christmas, Francis.
Thank you so much.
And everyone else, take care, and do check out Francis on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and everywhere else. Thanks very much, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care. Remain blessed. Bye.